Welcome to Coffee Break. Thoughtful conversations for a busy world. Let's begin.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It's really good to have you with us.
It is. Glad to be here.
Usually when we sit down here, our focus is, it's outward. We're looking at external data.
Right. The hard stuff, the numbers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know the drill by now. We're dissecting market volatility, or we're breaking down the latest in, quantum computing or something.
Or historical patterns, things we can measure, things with a clear ROI.
We love data.
Yeah.
We absolutely love the tangible, measurable stuff you can put on a spreadsheet. But today we're doing something a little different.
A lot different, I'd say.
We are turning the lens inward. We're going to look at the mechanics, and I want to be really deliberate with that word, the mechanics of personal evolution. And just to set the stage, this is not a pep talk.
No, definitely not. We are not here to tell you to manifest your dreams.
Or give you a virtual high five. We aren't doing the you can do it speech.
No fluff today. We're
Okay.
looking at the engineering of the self, the structure of change.
Specifically, we're looking at a very uncomfortable, very specific phenomenon that happens when you try to improve your life, when you try to grow. We're diving into excerpts from a piece called The Solitude of Becoming.
And we're referencing the analysis from QofeBreak 054 pretty heavily here.
Right. And when I first went through this source material, it didn't feel like a list of motivational quotes. It honestly felt more like a diagnosis.
It's a fascinating document because it puts language to a paradox that almost everyone in a high-performance bracket feels, but very rarely articulates.
They don't talk about it.
No, you're not supposed to. It puts words to a feeling that most people, frankly, try to ignore. The core premise we are unpacking today is this tension. The loneliest moments in your life often happen precisely when you are growing the most.
Which, on the surface, just makes absolutely no sense, right, man?
Yeah.
I'm improving. If I'm starting that business, getting in the best shape of my life, learning a new skill, whatever it is.
Becoming a better version of yourself?
Yes. I should be magnetic. People should be drawn to that energy. I should feel more connected to the world, not less. But the source material says, it emphatically says no.
It says no because we completely misunderstand the physics of change. And I want to be really clear about who we are talking to today. This deep dive isn't for everyone.
That's a fair point.
If you are perfectly content with where you are, if everything is stable and you like it that way, this might not resonate. This is for the learner persona. It's for the entrepreneur who's in that messy scale-up phase.
The mid-career professional who's trying to pivot into a new industry.
Or just anyone who feels kind of lost in the sauce of their own ambition. If you are in a transitional phase right now, this is your roadmap. This is for you.
Okay, so let's define the mission here. We have this central tension, this very heavy concept. The loneliest moments happen when you're growing. What are we actually trying to solve for the listener today?
The mission, as I see it, is to analyze the structure of that loneliness. We want to understand why growth creates emotional distance, not just as a side effect, but almost as a requirement of the process itself.
So it's not a bug, it's a feature.
It might be. We also want to validate that deep discomfort you feel in what the source calls the in-between. And then ultimately, we want to reframe loneliness. The source makes this incredibly bold claim that what you're feeling isn't a defect in your system, it's actually a mechanism of alignment.
A mechanism of alignment. I want to put a pin in that phrase because we have to come back to it. My brain does not compute that. When I feel lonely, my brain immediately goes to, I'm failing, I'm doing something wrong.
I've lost social capital.
I'm becoming unlikable. All of that.
And that's the trap. That's the error code. We see loneliness as a pathology, as a failure state. But today we're going to look at it as an awkward space. A space where the old version of you is essentially gone, but the new version, it hasn't fully arrived yet.
It's structural analysis, not motivational speech.
Exactly.
Let's get right into the hook then. The source has this quote that just stopped me in my tracks. It says, "Growth often feels isolating before it feels rewarding."
That's the one.
And I just want to ask you, listening right now, have you ever felt invisible while working harder than ever on yourself? You're in the gym, you're building the business, you're reading the books, you're grinding. But you look around and you feel like a ghost.
That's the feeling. That invisibility is the key metric we're talking about. It's not that you aren't there, it's that you're in a blind spot between two different worlds.
Okay, let's break that down. Section 1, the mechanics of emotional distance. The source opens with this idea that we have a fundamental, almost a cultural misconception about what growth actually is. We think it's addition.
Right. It makes sense. We live in a consumer culture, so we view the self as this collection of assets.
The portfolio.
A portfolio, exactly.
Oh.
I'm adding a skill, I'm adding muscle mass, I'm adding revenue to my business, I'm adding a new contact to my network.
Oh.
We think growth is just stacking wins on top of our existing life.
Like adding books to a shelf that's already full. You just kind of squeeze them in.
You just squeeze them in. We think we can keep everything we have, all the old comforts, all the old relationships, and just pile more good stuff on top. It's a very comforting thought.
It is, but the source argues that's not how it works at all. It argues that real growth is inherently about subtraction.
It's about subtraction. It's about displacement. You literally cannot move toward a new coordinate on a map without leaving the old coordinate. That's just physics.
You can't be in two places at once.
You can't. And the source uses this very specific language. It says, routines and relationships no longer fit.
I want to dig into that word fit,
Mm-hmm.
because fit is such a neutral, non-judgmental term. It doesn't mean your old friends are toxic. It doesn't mean your old routine was evil.
Oh, that's such a key distinction.
We see that language everywhere in self-help culture, right? Cut out the toxic people. And maybe some people are toxic, but sometimes they aren't toxic at all. There's yesterday.
They're just part of a chapter that has ended. And when we use a word like fit, we're talking about structural incompatibility.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a moral failing on anyone's part. Think of it like a container.
Right.
Imagine you're a plant in a small pot. For a long time, that pot is perfect. It did its job. It protected you when you were just a seedling. It held the soil together, gave you structure. It was exactly what you needed 3 years ago.
It was home.
It was home. But now you've grown. Your roots are hitting the walls. They're starting to bind. The pot isn't bad. The pot isn't evil. It just can't hold you anymore. It is by definition too small.
I like that. It's like outgrowing a house, too.
Yeah.
You don't burn down your starter home in a fit of rage when you move out.
Right. You don't scream at the walls for being too close together.
No, you move. You might even feel a little nostalgic. You appreciate the shelter it gave you, and you leave. But when we apply that to social dynamics, it gets so much harder and so much messier.
It's so much harder because houses don't have feelings. But people do. Social circles do. And the source points out that when your priorities start to shift, maybe you become obsessed with scaling your business, or you get deeply into metabolic health, or you just decide to stop drinking on weekends, the shared language you had with your old circle, it just dissipates.
The shared language. That's a really interesting concept. Can you unpack that a bit more?
Well, think about what binds any social group together. At its core, it's usually shared experiences, shared values, and often shared complaints.
Shared complaints is a big one.
It's a huge social glue. So your old circle might be speaking a language of maintenance. They're discussing the status quo, the comfort of routine, the game last night, maybe complaining about the boss at work. It's a language built around stability.
And it's a valid language. It keeps things predictable.
Absolutely. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. But if you're in this growth phase, you are suddenly trying to speak a language of evolution.
Risk, ROI, ketosis, market trends, cold plunges.
Exactly. You aren't necessarily judging them for their language, but the conversation just stalls. It's like trying to run a piece of Windows software on a Mac. It's not a moral issue. It's just incompatible. There's a translation error happening in real time.
And that feels awful. It's so uncomfortable. You feel like you're being a snob, or maybe you start to think they're being boring. You're sitting at a dinner table and you realize you have literally nothing to add because the things that are lighting you up right now, the growth, the change, the uncertainty, are completely foreign to them.
And on the flip side, the things that are lighting them up, the stability, the familiar routine, feel suffocating to you now.
Yeah.
And that chasm, that gap in language, that's what leads us directly into this concept of the in-between.
The source calls it the awkward space between old identity and new direction.
That's the danger zone.
Why is it the danger zone? I mean, it sounds uncomfortable, but why danger? Why is this specific phase so risky for people?
Because you have no cover. Think about it. You've left the shelter, the tribe of the old you, but you haven't built the shelter of the new you yet. You're completely exposed. You're out in the open, emotionally and psychologically.
And the source lists 3 specific emotions that define this phase. I want to go through them one by one because I think they're almost clinically accurate. The first one is lonely. But it's a specific kind of lonely.
Right. It's not just I have no friends loneliness. It's lonely due to a lack of peers.
Okay, what's the difference?
In the old space, you had peers. You had validation. You had people who nodded when you spoke because they understood your context, your jokes, your problems. They got it. In the new space, let's say you're the first person in your family trying to start a company, or you're training for an ultramarathon and nobody you know even runs. You haven't met your new tribe yet.
You're an N of one.
You're an N of one. You are structurally isolated. You are quite literally the only one in the room thinking the way you think. And that is a profoundly lonely feeling.
Okay, the second emotion, uncertain.
This one is about the loss of the map. Your old map worked. It was reliable. You knew. If I complain about my boss on Friday, my friends will agree with me and I will feel a sense of bonding. That's a predictable, repeatable outcome.
It's a social algorithm that you've mastered.
You've mastered it. You knew how to get validation, how to feel safe. Now, in this growth phase, you've thrown that map away. You're off-roading. You don't know if this business risk will pay off. You don't know if this new lifestyle will actually make you happier in the long run. You are operating almost entirely on faith, which is an incredibly high-stress state for the human brain. The feedback loop is completely broken.
No one is there to tell you you're on the right path.
Not a soul.
And that brings us to the third one, which I think this is the most profound and maybe the most painful. Invisible.
Yes, invisible. This one hits hard for a lot of people.
The source explains why. It says it's because the old crowd doesn't recognize the new you, and the new crowd hasn't met you yet.
Just think about the visual of that for a second. To your old friends, you seem distant, aloof. You seem changed. And they often say it like it's an accusation. You've changed.
As if it's a betrayal.
It's a betrayal of the old social contract. They don't see the person you're becoming. They only see the absence of the person you used to be. They see an empty chair at the bar where the party guy used to sit. They see a gap where their reliable friend used to be.
So to them, you're a ghost. You're just a reminder of what's now missing from their lives.
Precisely. And then to the new crowd, the people who are already operating at the level you want to reach, the mentors you look up to, the future business partners, the new peer group.
But they don't know you exist.
They don't even know you exist yet. You haven't produced the results to get on their radar. You haven't arrived.
Yeah.
So you are walking between these two worlds, fully, completely invisible. You are vibrating at a frequency that nobody else is picking up on yet.
And the scariest part of this, for me, is the duration. We instinctively assume this is a doorway. You just step through it. It takes 2 seconds. Okay, I've changed. Here's my new life. Thanks for playing.
And that's where people quit. That's the great filter. We treat the in-between like it's a hallway we're just passing through, but the source suggests it's more like a middle ground. It's a distinct geography. It's a place.
And you have to reside there for a while.
You might reside there for 6 months. You might be there for 2 years, maybe longer.
2 years of feeling invisible. That is a very, very hard sell. That's a long time to feel like a ghost wandering around.
It's a brutal sell. It's almost an impossible sell unless you reframe it. If you recognize it as a structural necessity of growth rather than a personal failure, you can survive it.
So it's about the story you tell yourself.
It's everything. If your story is, I'm lonely and invisible because I'm unlikable, you quit. You go back to the bar. You go back to the old life. But if you think, I'm lonely and invisible because I'm in the tunnel between two stations, you keep driving.
That framing is the only thing that keeps you sane. That's the only way to get through it. Which I think brings us perfectly to section 2, the discomfort of disconnection.
Right.
The source talks a lot about feeling misunderstood. And my first reaction to that was, isn't that just a teenager's complaint?
Yeah.
Oh, nobody gets me? Why is this a relevant concept for high-functioning adults?
It's a great question because it can sound like angst. But in this context, it's not teenage angst at all. It's a mechanical inevitability of transition. I'd argue it's almost about contract law, socially speaking.
Explain that, the social contract. That's interesting.
Every relationship we have, romantic, platonic, professional, operates on an invisible contract, a set of unstated rules and expectations. I am the funny one, you are the serious one. We bond over eating junk food and watching movies. We are both broke artists struggling together against the world.
That's a contract.
It is absolutely a contract, and it provides safety, predictability, and a sense of identity for both parties. When you decide to grow, when you start that business or get healthy, you are unilaterally rewriting that contract without the other person's consent.
You didn't send out a memo. You didn't sit them down and say, FYI, Clause 4, Section B of our friendship, regarding Friday nights is now null and void.
Exactly. You just started acting differently. You just changed the terms without a negotiation. And that naturally creates friction. People keep trying to interact with the old version of you. They push the buttons on the controller that used to work.
Come on, just have one drink. Why are you being so boring all of a sudden?
Why are you reading that boring business book? You used to be fun.
They're trying to get a response from a version of you that doesn't exist anymore, or at least is in the process of ceasing to exist.
You're trying to engage with a ghost. They're dialing a phone number that's been disconnected. They're trying to engage with a version of you that exists vividly in their memory, but not in present reality. So of course there's a misunderstanding. Of course there's friction. You're speaking two different dialects of the same language. They are interpreting your growth as a rejection of them.
And you're interpreting their stability as stagnation.
And maybe neither of you is necessarily wrong from your own perspective. You're just not on the same page of the contract anymore. It's been broken.
Which leads to this absolutely beautiful and I think critical distinction the source makes. It's the difference between loneliness and alignment.
This is it. This is the pivot point of the entire deep dive. If you take one single thing away from this entire conversation, let it be this. Because the words we use matter. How we label a feeling fundamentally changes how we experience that feeling.
Okay, lay it out for us. How does the source distinguish between those two words? Loneliness versus alignment.
Loneliness, in the traditional painful sense, is a deficit. It's a lack. It feels like something is missing from your life that should be there. It's a hollow feeling. It implies that you are less than whole because you are alone. It's a state of lack.
Okay, that's the one we all know and hate. That's the painful one.
That's the one that drives us to do stupid things just to make it stop. Now, alignment, according to the source, is the solitude required to calibrate to a new standard.
So it's functional.
It is functional solitude. It feels like loneliness. The day-to-day symptoms are almost identical, but the cause and the purpose are completely different. It's a necessary condition for the upgrade you're trying to perform.
So you're saying alignment actually requires a period of isolation. You can't align yourself while you're still in the crowd.
I don't think you can. Think about it practically. When you are surrounded by noise, and by noise I mean other people's opinions, your old habits, constant social obligations, the feedback loop of your old environment, how can you possibly hear your own signal?
You can't. The signal-to-noise ratio is terrible.
It's impossible. To align with a new purpose, a new identity, you need silence. You need to strip away the interference so you can hear what's actually true for you now.
I love the analogy of radio static here. It connects this idea perfectly. It's such a powerful way to visualize it.
It is the perfect metaphor for this feeling. Imagine you're driving across the country, you're listening to a radio station, that's your old life. It's clear, you know all the songs, it's comfortable, it's predictable.
But after a few hundred miles, you start to drive out of its range, the music gets repetitive, you want to listen to something new. So you reach for the dial and you start turning it.
And what happens in that space between 98.5 and 101.5?
Just static.
Yeah.
White noise, hissing. It's just complete chaos on the speakers.
Now here's the critical question. Does that static mean your radio is broken?
No, of course not.
Does it mean there are no other good stations out there to listen to?
No.
It means you are moving.
It's the sound of movement.
The static is the proof of movement. That is the reframe. That is everything. When you feel that loneliness, that static in your own life where nothing makes sense and nobody seems to get you and you feel disconnected, that isn't a broken life. That is not a broken radio. That is the sound of you tuning the dial.
You've left the frequency of your old station, but you haven't quite locked onto the new one yet.
And that is an incredibly powerful and hopeful way to look at it. Because when I hear static, my gut instinct, and I think this is true for most people, is to turn the dial back.
Immediately. Go back to 98.5. At least I know the words to that song. At least it's clear.
At least it's not this horrible noise. I will take a song I hate over this unbearable static.
And that's what most people do, isn't it? That's why most people don't actually change. They hit the static of personal growth, they feel that intense loneliness and confusion, and they retreat to the safety of their old, smaller life.
Because clarity, even a miserable clarity, feels better than the chaos of the static.
But if you know it's just the sound of tuning, you keep turning the dial.
You endure the static because you have faith that the music is coming. You know that station 101.5 is out there. You just haven't hit it yet. You trust the process.
Let's talk more about that process. Section 3, the quiet nature of progress. This feels so relevant today. The source says, progress can feel quiet before it feels obvious. This feels like a direct attack on our entire social media culture.
It absolutely is. We live in the era of loud wins. We are conditioned from a very young age to believe that progress makes a sound. It has to be announced.
I launched the business. I lost 50 pounds. Here's the before and after. Look at my new car. I just crushed this quarter. Here's the press release.
We celebrate the announcement, we celebrate the result, we celebrate the noise, but the source argues that real fundamental growth, the internal restructuring of your mind, your habits, your character, is silent. It is deeply, painfully, unglamorously quiet.
It's silent. And let's be honest, it's boring to watch from the outside. It's not cinematic at all.
It has to be. Think about building a skyscraper. Before the beautiful glass facade goes up, before the ribbon-cutting ceremony, before the architecture critics come to write glowing reviews, what happens first?
They dig a giant, ugly hole in the ground.
For months. A massive, muddy, ugly hole. Then they spend more months pouring concrete, laying rebar. It's dirty, it's noisy on site, but quiet from a progress perspective. And from the street, it looks like a disaster. It looks like a scar in the landscape.
If you walk by a construction site during that foundation phase, you don't look at it and say, wow, look at that incredible success. You say, when are they going to clean this mess up? What an eyesore.
And that is exactly how we feel about ourselves during a major life transition. When you are in the quiet phase, you feel like a hole in the ground. You're doing the heaviest lifting, changing your core mindset, breaking lifelong addictions, learning complex new systems, rewriting your own internal code. It is silent, invisible work.
Nobody gives you a round of applause when you resist a donut at 11 p.m. Nobody throws you a parade when you read a dense textbook for your industry instead of watching Netflix.
And that's where the source uses this phrase, silence mistaken for stagnation.
That's the trap.
That's the trap. You think you are standing still because nobody is applauding. You look at your life and say, nothing is happening. I'm working so hard and nothing is changing. But in reality, you are building the foundation that will hold the entire 100-story skyscraper later. You can't put the glass up until the concrete is dry. It's an inviolable law of nature.
And the source mentions that the new version of life hasn't fully formed yet. This implies a significant lag time between effort and result.
It's a lagging indicator. In economics, you have leading indicators and lagging indicators. Personal growth is almost always a lagging indicator. The internal shift, the real work, happens months or even years before the external reality catches up to it.
You change your spending habits today, but your bank account doesn't look different for a year. You change your diet today, but your body doesn't look dramatically different for months.
The cause and effect are separated by a long, quiet, frustrating period of time. So if you're out there listening and you are in that quiet phase and you feel that in-between state heavily,
you're right on schedule.
You are exactly on schedule. That is the message of this entire deep dive. If you are working your tail off and seeing zero external validation for it, do not stop. You are not failing. You are just in the foundation phase. You are pouring the concrete. Trust the process.
Okay, so we've established the why. We've diagnosed the problem. We know it hurts. We know it's quiet. We know it's lonely. We know it's static on the radio. Now we have to pivot to the how. Section 4, navigating the transition.
Right, because we can't just leave people hanging in the void with a good luck, hope you survive the loneliness.
No, that would be irresponsible. The source material does offer some guidance, some practical ways to stay grounded while you're moving through this intense change.
And the first question it tackles is the most obvious one. How do you stay grounded when your old routines, the very things that used to ground you, are gone?
Because routines are safety. They're anchors.
They are. Your old routines were your anchors in the storm of life. I go to this bar with these specific friends every Friday night. I watch football with my family all day Sunday. That anchored your week. It gave you a rhythm, a predictability. When you cut that line, you are, by definition, adrift. You can lose your sense of time, of self.
So the answer can't be just float. You need new anchors, right?
You need temporary supports. You cannot just float in the abyss indefinitely. You'll go crazy. You need to build a new scaffolding while the main structure is being built.
So what are some of those strategies then that are derived from the solitude of becoming?
The very first one, and it sounds simple, but it's incredibly difficult, is acceptance of the phase.
Which, to a lot of people, might sound like passive resignation, like, okay, I accept that I am miserable and lonely.
It's the opposite of passive. It's active labeling. It means consciously acknowledging I am in a state of transition. It means you stop fighting against the feeling every single day. So instead of waking up and your first thought being, why am I so lonely? This is wrong. I need to fix this immediately. I need to call someone. I need to scroll. I need to distract myself.
Which is what we all do.
It's the default. Instead, you say, I am feeling lonely this morning because I am in a growth phase. This is a weather pattern. It's not my identity. It will pass.
It takes the fear out of it. It separates you from the feeling.
Right.
It stops being this all-consuming monster, and it just becomes a cloud passing overhead.
Exactly. When you label it accurately, you detach from it. You can observe it without being consumed by it. Oh, there is that feeling of invisibility again. Interesting. That's the static on the radio. It means I'm moving.
Hey, that's a powerful mental shift. What's the second strategy?
The second is reframing the void.
The void. That sounds dramatic.
It feels dramatic. This goes back to the space concept. When you cut out the old habits, let's say you stop mindlessly scrolling social media for 2 hours a night, or you stop going to those happy hours that you know just drain your energy and your wallet.
Suddenly, you have a vacuum in your schedule. You have 3 hours of dead, silent time on a Friday night where you used to have noise and distraction.
And nature, as they say, abhors a vacuum. We panic. We feel the itch of that emptiness, and we want to fill it with anything.
We doom scroll something else. We raid the fridge. We call an ex. We do anything to stop the silence from closing in.
The strategy here, the reframe, is to view that empty space not as a hole to be plugged, but as a garden bed that you've just tilled. It's fresh soil.
It's room for the new direction to actually take root.
Yes, and this is the hardest part for ambitious people. You have to sit in the boredom. You have to let the void exist for a little while. The source really emphasizes this point that you cannot rush the formation of the new version of your life.
That brings us to patience. But this isn't passive patience, like waiting for a bus to show up.
No, this is strategic, active patience. If you rush to fill that void, you will almost certainly fill it with a slightly different version of your old life. You'll just find new people to drink with, or a new TV show to binge, or another trivial hobby. You'll swap one distraction for another.
You'll just recreate your old prison cell with new furniture.
Perfectly said. If you want a genuinely new life, you have to wait for the new, authentic seeds to sprout. And that means you have to endure the empty garden for a season. You have to let it be fallow.
It's like baking a cake. You can't just turn the oven up to 500 degrees to make it bake faster. You'll just burn the outside, and the inside will be raw.
You'll ruin it. You have to hold the tension of the process. You have to be okay with having an empty Saturday night for a while. You have to be okay with eating lunch alone at your desk. That is the price you pay for the new life. You are, in a very real sense, buying your future freedom with your present boredom.
Which leads us perfectly into the final section, Section 5, the core philosophy. The source really sums this all up with one powerful key takeaway. Loneliness during growth isn't failure, it's transition.
We need to tattoo this on the inside of our eyelids.
It's so counterintuitive. Why is that association so strong in our culture? Why do we immediately equate being alone with being a failure? Is it just social conditioning?
It's deeper than that. We have to respect the biology here. It's evolutionary. If you were alone on the savannah 10,000 years ago, you were dead, period.
The lion would get you.
A lion would eat you, you would freeze to death, you would starve.
Mm-hmm.
So our brains, our ancient hardware, are wired to scream, danger, danger, red alert, when we experience social isolation.
So the anxiety we feel isn't just in our heads, it's a primal survival mechanism kicking in.
It is absolutely a survival mechanism. Your amygdala is firing off distress signals. It is telling you that you are in mortal danger because you have been separated from the tribe.
And then you layer on top of that decades of modern social programming that tells us popularity equals worth. If you're alone on a Friday night, it must be because you're uncool or unlovable.
So the source material is fighting against millions of years of evolutionary biology and a lifetime of social conditioning. It is asking you to consciously override your own brain's deepest hardware.
Yes, it's explicitly trying to correct this deep-seated error code in our mental programming. It is saying, that alarm bell you hear, ignore it, the alarm is false.
The fire is not in your house.
Right. You are not being exiled from the tribe because you are defective.
Yeah.
You are consciously leaving the tribe to go build a new one.
That is a massive, massive distinction. Leaving versus being exiled.
It's everything. Being exiled is passive. It's something that happens to you. Leaving is active. It's a choice you make. This whole deep dive is about owning that choice. It's about being able to stand in that uncomfortable space and say, I am walking into this wilderness on purpose, for a purpose.
And the source argues that this mindset is the only defense against the temptation to go back. We talked about turning the radio dial back to the old, comfortable station.
That temptation is always there. It never fully goes away. I'll just go back to the way things were. It was easier. I'll apologize for being different and just fit back into my old box.
But the source reframes that loneliness, that pain, as a symptom of success.
A symptom of success.
Yeah.
Now that is a provocative idea that flips the entire script on its head.
If you are feeling lonely, it means you have successfully detached from the people, habits, and mindsets that were holding you back. It means the process is working. The detachment itself was the goal. The loneliness is just the evidence that you did it. It's the receipt.
It's the price of admission for the new life.
It is exactly that. The new business, the new body, the new mindset, the new relationship with yourself. It's not free. It has a cost. And the cost is the temporary but acute discomfort of the in-between. If you aren't willing to pay that price, you simply don't get the prize.
If you aren't willing to pay the price, you don't get the prize. That hits hard because it reframes the suffering. It gives the pain a purpose.
And that's the difference between tolerable suffering and unbearable suffering. Meaningless suffering is hell, but meaningful suffering is manageable. If you know why you are lonely, if you know it's buying you something incredibly valuable, you can handle it. You can endure almost anything if it has a purpose.
So let's try to wrap this all up. We've covered a lot of pretty heavy ground today.
We have. This was a different kind of deep dive.
It was. We started with the pain of emotional distance, that feeling of outgrowing your container, that structural incompatibility with your old life. We moved through the deep awkwardness of the in-between, that invisible phase where you are neither here nor there, just waiting for the new map to load.
Then we talked about the silence of progress, the idea that the foundation work, the most important work, doesn't get any applause, and how the external results we crave always lag far behind the internal work we're doing.
And we finally landed on this powerful realization that what we feel as painful loneliness is actually the sensation of alignment. It's the static on the radio. It's the sound of movement, not failure.
It's not an error. It's the process itself unfolding.
And as a reminder, this all comes from the analysis in QofeBreak 054, based on the piece, The Solitude of Becoming. I really hope for you listening, this gives some validating context to those quiet Friday nights where you're sitting at home working on your dream while it feels like everyone else is out living their life.
If you are that entrepreneur, that professional trying to grow, and you feel uncertain and invisible right now, I just want to remind you one last time, you are exactly where you are supposed to be. Do not panic. Do not turn back.
You're just in the tunnel. The only way out is through. Keep driving.
Keep driving. The light is there, even if you can't see it yet.
Now, before we sign off, we always like to leave you with a final provocative thought, something to chew on that wasn't explicitly in the text, but sort of builds on its core philosophy.
Right. So we've talked a lot today about the void, that empty space you have to create in your life when you decide to grow. And we said not to rush to fill it, but eventually. Eventually, the static clears. Eventually, you do find the new station. The construction finishes.
So the question becomes...
Question for you to take with you is this. If the loneliness you feel right now is actually just space you've intentionally created for what's coming next, what are you going to let fill that space when the time is right?
Ooh, that's good. Because it implies you have a choice now. You cleared the room. You can be deliberate about what you put back in it.
You clean the house from top to bottom. Don't just drag the old junk back in off the curb. Be intentional. Who do you want to fill that new space? What kind of habits? What kind of peace? What kind of people deserve to be in that new, beautiful room you've built for yourself?
Use the space wisely. I love that as a final thought. Thank you for listening to this deep dive. It was a quieter one, maybe a deeper one, but I think a really necessary one.
I agree. Absolutely necessary.
We'll see you in the next deep dive.
Take care.
Thanks for spending this time with us on Coffee Break. If this conversation stayed with you, you can find more episodes here on the channel. Until next time, take care.